That's pretty good. 9 mile. Let's see. 5:14 pace. 12 times, 3 minutes, 60 seconds rest, 164 average heart rate, 927 calories. That's like 4 pancakes. Okay guys, so today's session went really well, and that is a long time coming because there's been a lot of good work being put in, which I think if there was a what's the best way to train, what's the the secret to getting things to their best place ever, it's almost not a single session or not a style of training. It's just patience and a large volume of work where you're just putting in good days. It's that sort of phrase of getting it done and not worrying too much about the outcome, because once we start worrying too much on what the pace might be, whether we'll be quicker than what we were previously, well, then you almost overcomplicate the process, you don't enjoy it, and then you're not as willing to sort of commit to the length of time that sometimes this will take. Hopefully that wasn't confusing, but that's the secret. It just takes time. And so there's no necessarily right way to do it. There's a method that has worked for a lot of people before you and me, but there'll be different components of that that'll help you more than it'll help me or someone else. And so sometimes it's a trial and error, but that kind of makes it really important when you're out there doing a session that you execute it in the right way. Not just because you want to get the best out of that session, which of course you do, but then you want to be able to post-race or in 3-4 weeks time, you want to be able to see have things improved. And then if they have improved, you want to be able to pin down how they improved. Or if they didn't, you also want to be able to pin down that they didn't. If you're doing sessions in the wrong way, and that's what we're going to talk about, it's very difficult to then make a decision of, did this work or did it not work? So let's get into talking about that. So before we get stuck into the video, I just wanted to give you a small update on where things are at. And if you haven't followed the channel for a long time and you kind of just want to get to how did the threshold stuff go, and I'll be showing you that in the background, but you can skip forward a little bit and you can just get stuck into how those reps went. But I'm in between marathons. I obviously tried to make the Paris Olympics, I didn't make it, but now I'm rebuilding some of that basic fitness. Getting back to a place where I can go into the park and do 30-40 minutes the effort, maybe 3-minute reps, 5-minute reps, 10-minute reps, and hopefully they're coming out at 450 pace to 5 minutes, right? I'm not running as hard as I can, they're just really solid days, but that's like my baseline, and that's something that you guys need to consider between big goals. Get yourself back to sort of that baseline fitness. So I'm doing my best to rebuild some of that sort of like base fitness so that when I do commit to this sort of bigger plan, which is in motion, which will head towards a marathon goal towards the end of the year, well then I'm ready to do that. I can't announce yet what marathon that is because that's just the way elite sport works. And so I apologize for that. But there is a big goal. There will be some little goals along the way that we'll talk about as we go along. But things are in a good place. I'm getting some of those basics ticked off again. I'm starting to feel good in the training. And I'm really proud of probably the like 6 to 8 weeks of training that I've put in. Really good work in the park, some stronger long runs that I've sort of been ticking off, and then plenty of days like today. So let's talk about today. So one quick one, if you could like, subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. Maybe, drop a comment below about some of the content that you'd like to see on the channel. You can also check out joggingclo.com where I've put together some merchandise to help support this channel. And then also joggingroom.com where you've got the masterclass, all things running, all those tips, and then also the training plans. I'll be really, really grateful and appreciate your support. Let's get back to the video. A day like today, I'm out there doing 12 times 3 minutes. It's a very, simple and basic day. And I don't mean basic in terms of these paces. I'm not trying to take the piss. They're fast, right? I'm moving well around the park today. But it's a basic day that doesn't require an overcomplicated approach. You just go to the park and you just put in work. And you try to work around that area that feels like threshold. Some days it will end up being the beautiful pace that you want it to be. but some other days it won't be. And so here's today, for example. I set off, and it's very likely that rep 1 through 6, things are in a really good place, right? And bear with me. So I'm sort of doing reps 1 to 6, and I'm sitting at probably the exact intensity that I should be, and the feeling's good. I actually feel really good. I'm thinking, this is going to be a great day. When you notice that my shirt has came off, today I was wearing what's called a Core sensor. This is not sponsored by Core. I just really wanted to sort of try it and see where it's at. And in hindsight, I didn't look during the session, but my shirt comes off. My shirt's off quite a lot in training, I'll be honest. But it's not because I'm showing off, because I'm hot. Always really hot, right? And I've actually found wearing the Core sensor that it's no wonder I struggle on really hot days, because my core goes up quickly and it's something I need to work on, right? And so after like rep 6 through rep 12, and that's probably coincides with when the shirt has made an appearance on the floor, then the effort is above threshold. I don't know that for a fact because I didn't check lactate, but I kind of just know, and I'm good at this, so I reckon my prediction's right. Interesting enough, my perceived effort is still threshold, right? To me, threshold is like a feeling of you are comfortable and you're pressing a bit, but you're good, right? And normally for me, it's not a cadence because my cadence stays quite similar, but it's kind of just a rhythm, okay? So by all accounts, I'm still running a threshold rhythm and feel. And the pace is still what it was in the first sort of 6 reps. But I know that because my core temperature, and this is not a video about core, but bear with me. I know because my core has now gone up by about 1 degree, and it's got quite dangerously high. Not dangerous, I'm gonna like die, but just pretty high. It's sitting at about 40.2 degrees. It was 37 when I left the house, you know, after waking up out of bed, etc., etc. So it's gone up quite a bit. 38 at the end of the warm-up. It's now 40. I know that because my core is as high as it is, the energy demand isn't threshold anymore. So even though perceived effort still feels like threshold, and I'm not trying to make this complicated, the actual demand that my body's going through is a little bit harder. So what does that mean, and what can you kind of do about it? What you can do about it, I also know because I'm wearing Moxy on my left quad, you'll see, but I don't want to mention Moxy, not because I don't want it to be sponsored, but I know that it's getting outrageous for some people and the expense for some people that I'm talking about things, and these things aren't cheap. So I'm not trying to do that. That's not what this is. But it also backs up when I'm saying, I know for a fact, even though perceived effort feels like threshold, I know that the energy cost isn't, because I've noticed Moxy dropping a bit. And it's very correlated with lactate and threshold, etc. And so just trust me, the effort was now above threshold, likely because I was getting too hot, not because of fitness. So I kind of crack on and I stubbornly keep the sort of pace. Is this ridiculous? But the pace that I was enjoying going at, I wanted to keep the pace in that 4:50 to 5 minute place. But the problem is it was supposed to be a threshold session. And so because it was supposed to be a threshold session, you've now turned it into probably the first 5, 6 are at threshold. 6 to 8 might have sort of still, you know, ended at threshold. 8 to 12, we've pushed it up a bit. All that sort of does is means that on Wednesday, you have to take it a lot easier, right? And then on Thursday, you can sort of get back into your rhythm again. But you're probably not going to go do like a hard session, which you might have been capable of doing if Tuesday had stayed at threshold. Full disclosure, I might not have been able to keep it at sort of threshold that day without slowing down drastically. It was 20 degrees Celsius. I think it was 90% humidity. It's not ridiculous that I did overheat. I potentially could have held back in the first 6 reps, but then they probably wouldn't have been at the right threshold. They might have almost been like LT1 because I was deliberately holding back. Or another way to do it would have been to do the 6 reps and then drastically slow. And I mean drastically. I might have had to slow instead of 4:55 pace, I might have had to slow to 5:10, 5:15 because I've just overheated. And once you've overheated, it's really difficult to bring back a level of control. You guys know, I'm sure you've been out there and you've got too hot and things have just gone to shit. So training execution, it is important, right? But we can't always get it right. I by all accounts, I was getting really pissed off with Moxie because I'm bloody good at this. And I was still getting frustrated that I couldn't get it right. And that goes to show you how difficult it can be. Where I'm going to go with that is just allow flexibility. And so that means when you're out there, if it goes tits up and you make a bit of a mess of it, which you will a lot, I do it too, then just make sure that you take the appropriate steps over the next few days to kind of pay the price of not executing that day right. And so if you've turned it into harder reps instead of threshold reps, maybe take 2 days before your next session, and then maybe your next session has to be threshold, but do it right. If weather's going to be a problem, and this goes for me, sometimes I'm going to have to consider, cooling stuff before, maybe even cooling stuff during, or maybe just going on a treadmill with some sort of cooling strategy around being in one place with a treadmill and maybe having like an ice cap or an ice vest next to me for the recovery. I know that sounds really over the top, but it would have meant that I would have done 12 times 3 minutes at threshold and at probably a good relevant pace to my fitness at that moment in time had it not been really hot, is where I'd go with that. But it is so important because then you can start to dial in what worked, what didn't work. But more than anything, it is important to be flexible with the remainder of your training week and take ownership of the fact that if you did make a mess of it, take ownership of that. You didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't a wasted training session. I think any part of that 12 times 3 minutes banging out laps of that park was a waste of time. Definitely not. Come on. It was a really bloody good day. But do I then have to make decisions about the rest of the week? Perhaps not come back Thursday with another session, perhaps take a sort of medium day approach. Today was 15 miles at 5:58 per mile, just a really steady day. It's not 2 easy days in a row. It's one very easy day, and then it's a kind of solid day. You wake up and see how you feel tomorrow. It might be another easier day, and then you can get back to a session on Saturday. The key is to be recovered enough to then be able to do another session, do that other session well enough, execute it well, and move on in one piece. Take care of all those good things, the recovery stuff, the strength stuff, your psychology stuff, and keep things in a really good place. I never want to move on from a video like I uploaded previously and just be almost like bipolar, like now suddenly everything's okay. That was a tough video for me. Mental health perhaps hasn't been at the forefront of all my focus, and maybe I did let it go a bit. And I don't just simply, wake up the next day super happy, but I am taking those little steps to, bring that happiness back, and the journaling and the meditating and the focusing on maybe stretching before bed and less screen time. But I just wanted to make that clear, that I don't just bipolar switch and now I'm really happy. I just take little steps, and it's a process. But I want to thank everybody for the nice comments. It means a lot to me. And I appreciate it all. There is heaps of information on the website, joggingroom.com. It continues to support me. I hope the marathon plan, the half marathon plan can support you guys towards your goals. There's also a 10K plan. I am adding a strength plan, and that'll run alongside those sort of plans. And so you can check that out if you want to. There's also merchandise on joggingclo.com, and take care. All the best. I hope you enjoyed that session. It was a good day, and just, be kind to yourself. The world's pretty tough, and running is awesome to be quicker. It's awesome to be chasing big goals, but also just take little moments to realize that, it's pretty awesome for the head too. So take care.